My name is Ezra Yakhin. My friends call me El Nakam because this was my code name in the underground. My last code name, I had few. And I was born long ago, 84 years ago, 1928. And I want to add something. I was born to the darkest days, maybe in history, for sure, the darkest days in the history of the Jewish nation. Right after I was born, masses of Arabs stormed over Jews and committed terrible atrocities in Jerusalem, Hebron, Safed, Mota, and other places. And then in Europe, Hitler got to power. And we know the results. And those dark days, as I said, the darkest day in our history, a little fire was lit. There was a young man whose name was Abraham Stern. It was called Yair. He decided it's about to bring freedom to our nation, enough to be depending on the mercy of other peoples and what they do to us. And to bring freedom, we have to fight the British. At that time, Britain was the greatest empire in the world. They ruled about 1/3 of the world's population. To fight them, he said, yes, we're capable, because we're a nation who's capable for everything. I will say it, Am Segula in Hebrew. He collected very few people, as much as he could, few tens. Like first Abraham, who was the first freedom fighter known in history, who collected 318 men and liberate this land from the four kings, and brought freedom to this land by defeating them. This way, Abraham Stern was the first freedom fighter after 2,000 years that we've been oppressed and in the exile, terrible. I won't tell you all this story, it's a long story, what we suffered throughout history. And they started fighting the British. That's how the Lehi started, fighters for the freedom of Israel. They were called the Stern Gang, after his name. And they made the impossible. And they suffered a lot, not only from the British, which were after them, but from Jews who didn't understand them. All our politicians and the press were in panic. What they're doing to us? Don't we have enough trouble with the British also to anger them? And right now, started World War II, and the British fight the Germans. Let us help them. And what we mean by helping them is to put an end to this group. And they were after them. They incited against them, and the results were terrible. Most of them were arrested. Some of them were killed. And Abraham Stern, he knew he won't survive. And it didn't take long. When the British arrived to this building, they found him, they handcuffed him and shot him and murdered him. And people thought Well, came an end to the Stern gang. If Abraham Stern himself was killed, now we can breathe properly. That's what they thought. But the whole world didn't let us breathe properly. At that time, people hear that another ship sunk in the Mediterranean, and another ship is sinking. What were there? Who were there? 200, 400, 800 Jews who wanted to escape from the hands of Hitler. Why did they sink? Because the British blocked their way to life. They decided we have a law, the white paper, which prevents Jews to come to this land, and to make sure that they won't approach here, let them stay in Europe, who annihilates them. And here people demonstrated against the white paper, but there were some who understood. By demonstrations, we won't get what we need. We have to fight the British to get them out of here, to make it possible for Jews to come here, to make it possible for Jews to live as a free nation. But those knew that. Almost all of them were jailed. There was a young man whose name was Yitzhak Yezernitsky. Now we know him very well. Unfortunately, he passed away about 2 months ago. Yitzhak Shamir escaped from detention camp in Mezra. Afterwards came the escape from a detention camp in Latrun. 20 boys made the impossible. They dug a tunnel under the ground, the length of 76 meters, in conditions that no one could understand how it was possible. They escaped from there, and now it's not a fire of a match, it's becoming a torch who fight. And they renewed their fight against the British. It took about 4 years until in the Etzel they understood that we have to fight the British. In February 1944, they declared revolt against the British, and now we had others who compete with us fighting the British, the Etzel. Well, the white papers, each white paper was new law against us, against Zionism. The first white paper published by he who was in 1922 Minister of the Colonies, Winston Churchill. He decided that after, the Balfour Declaration that we were going to have this land, he decided to cut about 8% of our land, Transjordan, which now is called Jordan, to give it to whom? There was a guy whose name Abdallah. His brothers were given vast countries to rule them because they said that they helped the British to fight the Turks in World War I. He said, what about me? I also need. So I decided, on the account of the Jews, decided to give Transjordan to this Abdallah, who didn't belong at all. He was Saudi Arabian. And that's why they cut this part of our land. And later on, there were more white papers who denied us the right to purchase land, to develop settlements, towns, and there were to block our people who wanted to come to live in, the Jews who wanted to come to their own country. And in 1929, in the white paper, they also decided that this country will, within 10 years, become a Palestinian state. And the Jews will live on the mercy of them. And until then, only very few Jews, up to 75,000 Jews within 5 years, will be allowed to come here, and that's it. The rest is with the agreement of the Arabs. And people here understood that what did the Arabs do for this country, apart from murdering? We developed the country. We turned the desert to a fertile land, and why did they give them that? I guess there was hatred to Israel, to the Jews. I can't understand it otherwise. And maybe the smell of oil was important for them more than the Jewish blood, despite the fact that their leaders joined with Hitler. The Mufti and Kaugji, they joined with Hitler. They were promised all they asked, all they demanded, but they have a better alternative. The Germans annihilate Jews without excuses. So he preferred them. And despite the fact that the Arabs betrayed the British after all they got from them, because they joined with the Nazis, because they had, I would say, Nazi blood. And during World War II, when it was known that the Arabs backed the Germans, the British didn't let Jews come here, even not those who were allowed according to the white paper, because they said, now it's not time to let Jews come. Maybe the Germans sent spies and so on. Between us, we know the British recruited whatever they could to fight the Germans. We know how they formed the French army of de Gaulle, the Polish army of Sikorski, and so on. If they would look at it properly, they could find that if they would let the Jews get out from Europe, they could have formed a tremendous army fighting the Germans. The Jews with a tremendous motivation. But this was not in their mind. It was more important for them that Jews will be annihilated in Europe than winning the war. And we know during the Blitz over London, when the British made tremendous efforts to block the way of the Germans of storming over Britain after they controlled almost all Europe. At this very time, they didn't hesitate sending warships to the Mediterranean to block the way of Jews for life. I just finished reading again the memoirs of Churchill. You can see here, I got from here 6 volumes of about 700 pages in each volume. He writes everything about World War II. It doesn't mention in one word the Holocaust. He almost doesn't mention it at all, the Jews. They don't exist for him. And we had to fight them, but we made the impossible. like David fought Goliath and won, we fought the British, which was the Goliath, according to us, which were very few fighters. I say very few because most of us, more than 80%, were either imprisoned in jails or in detention camps, and the rest were very few. And among them, most of the fighters were children, 15, 16, 17 years old. They won't send them to the fighting, but they helped a lot by pasting our posters on the wall explaining why we're fighting. And those who came to the age of 17, 18, 19 were the fighters with firearms, and there are very few groups, and we made the impossible. Let me tell you, it depends what you mean by terrorists. If terrorists mean to terrorize civilians without mercy, we are not terrorists. But if it means to terrorize the enemy troops, we did terrorize them. That's how I would, because we let them understand. We have to fight you. We won't let you live properly until you get out of this country, which is ours. You have your England, go there. It's about time for us to be free. Who are you to rule us? You know who are the Jews? We're descendants of King David, of the Maccabees, of the prophets who brought light to the world. You want to rule us? We won't let you. Got out of the streets and danced in terrible joy. We're going to have a state of our own after 2,000 years that we were oppressed and we didn't know the smell of freedom. But I and my friends were sad. We were the first ones who said we will fight the British and we're going to have a state of our own. We were very sad. And those who didn't believe, dancing. Maybe since the dancing and the joy around the golden calf, there wasn't such dancing like this night of November 29th, 47. What are you dancing for? What is there in the United Nations decision for us in this partition plan? Where is our land? Which I think it's ours. Judea. Judea, which won't be part of Jews. Samaria, Sinai, which I think at the Golan Heights, and not only that, even the western Galilee won't be part of the state of Israel. Even not Jaffa, Ramle, Lod, Bet Shemesh, Kiryat Malachi, all those places will be part of the Arab state according to the United Nations decision. And not only that, Jerusalem, all of Jerusalem won't be part of the Jewish state. The whole Jerusalem, which we lasted in all our prayers. There isn't any day that we don't pray. Most of our prayers is we face Jerusalem and we dream about Jerusalem and we pray for Jerusalem and we think about Jerusalem. We breathe about Jerusalem and we sing on Jerusalem. We cried for Jerusalem. It was everything for us. It's not just a holy place. It's deep in our blood. And so many blood of heroes were split on the walls and the alleys of Jerusalem. greatest hero, the Maccabees, fight those who revolted, the Romans, and so on and so on. Won't be part of that. Where is a nation who gave so much for any city in the world, like we gave in blood and in prophecies, in everything? And this won't be part of Jerusalem. This Jerusalem, that a Jew cannot enjoy his most important event in his life. When he gets married, he wants to dance, he wants to enjoy it, to have all the family and the guests to dance, and you can't do it unless you have to swear, if I will forget the Jerusalem, let my right be forgotten. Only after that you have the right to enjoy. And here they forgot Jerusalem, they forgot the right, they forgot anything, and they danced. And at that time, 100,000 Jews lived in Jerusalem. Enormous amount of the Jews in this country lived in Jerusalem. And this is the city who fought more than any other city in this country against the British for the sake of having an independent state. Won't be part of Jerusalem of my best friend Alexander Lubovitch, who was tortured to death when he was 16 and a half years old. And he didn't give them any information about what he knows about the underground. Terrible torture. You have to read a very important book written by David Cesarani. There he describes the fall of the British rule in this country around this event. The name of the book is Major Farron's Hat. Here describes how this boy, 16 and a half years old, suffered. They hit him with clubs. They cut his flesh with knives. They burned his flesh with burning cigarettes. And he won't tell them. What a hero, Alexander Lubovitch. I think everyone has to know his name. And my friends, Moshe Barazandi and Meir Feinstein, who blew themselves to death to prevent the violation of the holiness of Jerusalem by hanging. Jerusalem of Meir Nakar, Absalom Haviv, who were hung on the gallows while singing Hatikva, which ends with the words, to be a free nation, to become a free nation, a nation of Zion and Jerusalem and Jerusalem. This Jerusalem of those heroes won't be part of this. We couldn't agree with that. But right after the dancing, we found ourselves dragged from the excitement of the dancing to the screaming for the death. We found that all the Arabs stormed over the Jews and started murdering Jews all over the country, backed by the British, because the British had time to evacuate about 6 months since the decision, till May 15, 1948. During that time, they supplied the Arabs enormous amount of arms, and they disarmed any Jew who tried to defend himself. And during this time, you will read in my book all this story, how we fought the British and the Arabs until the British left at the end in May 15, 1948, and how we made it. And during that time, after British already left, all we had in mind, our Jerusalem, the old city, because the British presence actually separated in the place which was called the Russian compound, which was the center of the rule. It separated between the Jewish side of Jerusalem and the old city. And now they left. We thought all we have in mind is to come to liberate. We stormed over the buildings separating between us and the old city, because others didn't come with us. We, the Lehi, fought bitterly until we conquered all the buildings between us and the old city, and we couldn't continue on because we had 4 of us killed, most of us badly wounded, and we ran out of ammunition. But we didn't give up. With the time, we got more arms, more. Yes, at that time, we heard, in the midst of the fighting, I heard someone shouting at me, "El Nakam, tell your boys there." In the midst of fighting, people heard on the radio. Yesterday, Ben Gurion declared the establishment of the Jewish state. The state of Israel was born. This made me very happy. But from what I saw, something is missing. The old city is in their hands. The place of the kingdom of David. The mountain of God. Let's get there, but we couldn't continue on because we ran out of ammunition and there were very few left. It took time. We got more arms, more ammunition, more boys joined with us, more wounded could get and join us, and after 2 months we got the word that it was in a Friday morning. Tonight there is an agreement with the Haganah and the Etzel. All together we're going to storm to liberate the old city of Jerusalem. Each organization will attack from different side. The fight will start 0 hour 11 at night. You have no idea how excited we were. We couldn't feel the floor under our feet. We felt in clouds of excitement. We're going to liberate Yerushalayim, our Yerushalayim. I thought about the Maccabees who liberated the old city of Yerushalayim and cleared it from the enemy. And now we're going, and they got glorified for eternity, and now it's our turn. And then after we got the instructions and the arms, we stood in ranks, each group by itself, and I looked at my friends. I couldn't see the same fighters I saw yesterday or the day before. They all changed. They looked bright and excited. I thought maybe this way the Maccabees looked. And then we've heard the commander of Lehi in Jerusalem, Yeshua Zettler, we called him Mayor. He gave us the speech of the day, and he tells us, for so many generations, our nation prays for, dreams for, lasting for, this very night that we're going to liberate our Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim of the King David. Neighboring our camp in Jerusalem, there was an institution for orphans. Children, some of them lost their parents from a disease or in the war, but most of them were children which were discovered in Europe, in convents, in far, in distant places, towns, without father, without mother. All their family members were burned in Auschwitz. They brought to this place. They've heard everything, and they suddenly shouted at us, Hatzlichu! Hatzlichu! Go in peace and come back in peace. Well, if until this moment I was so excited because I know how our past is waiting for this moment to liberate Jerusalem. 2,000 years of lasting, of praying, of dreaming. Now I found out not only our past is waiting for us, also our future. Those little children which survived from the hell of the Holocaust, wish us success. See, 5, 6, 7 years old children. If until that moment I was so excited, at this moment my excitement doubled and tripled so many times that I felt I'm going to lose my mind, to get crazy from that also for them. I said, God, let me take part in this action. After that, I don't care what will happen to me. Well, the time came when we got the word that the sappers are on the way to the wall, to blow the wall, to make it possible for us to storm into the old city. At that moment, we sat behind us. There was the wall of a convent close to the old city wall, waiting. And we could see what's happening in Jerusalem, which is in our hand. It was a dark night, but we could see very well how the Arabs bombarded our Jerusalem with their mortars and cannons. Through the dark, we could see the flashes of the blowing bombs, and to hear the noises of the blows, and we saw how the bombs are coming closer and blowing closer and closer to where we sat. I told my friends, listen, every minute we can get hit. Let us pull down our helmets to defend our heads from the bombs. All of us did it, and right after that I felt a very strong push in my head, and a stream of blood flooded from above my right eye. It appeared that a bomb blew on my right side, as if it wanted to tell me, if I want to reach your head, I'll find my way. A piece of metal from the bomb penetrated from above my right eye deep into my head. I stood up to ask for help. I felt pain all over my body. I understood all over my body, shrapnels of the bomb hit me. But the worst was my head. I stood up to get help, and then I heard something which bothered me. Someone groaned, someone said, "Oi!" I thought to myself, listen, wait a minute. I need very badly help, and I want to live. I was at that time 20, and I wanted to live. I had all kinds of things I want to do during my lifetime, and the pain was so demanding for help. But how about others? Maybe there are others wounded. Maybe some of them, any of them is badly wounded and needs help. Who am I to get help to live on the account, to try to live on the account of a friend's life? No, I got back in my place and sat and waited. The nurse, we had the nurse who treated the wounded, stood up and asked, who's wounded here? She heard the blow. I waited to see if others will answer, waited and waited, no one stood up, so then I stood up. She helped me crossed the street. On the other side, in a certain distance, was formed a place for first aid. During that time, she helped me. I felt I lost the sight of my right eye, got blinded. The left eye wasn't hurt, but because of tremendous pain, I couldn't open the left eye as well. Without seeing what's going on, I heard what's going on, the blows of the bombs, and in my heart I prayed for the sake of Drora. This girl tries to save my life. She herself can get killed. We got to the place. She made me sit on a chair, and then I hear someone asking, "Who's he?" I understood that he couldn't recognize me because my face, my head was full of blood, all the time streaming out from my head. I thought, if I'll tell him that it's me, El Nakam, it will hurt him badly. We were such good friends. So I thought, how shall I comfort him so he won't be sorry that it's me? I thought maybe I'll tell him, don't be sorry. After all, it's for the sake of Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem. But when I came to tell him that, I remembered it took time, and we didn't get yet to Jerusalem. I told him, leave that now. Tell me, why didn't we yet break into the old city? Why what are we waiting for? Before I got his answer, we heard a tremendous blow. Right after that, I heard someone saying, the wall was blown. When I've heard these two words in Hebrew, Achoma nifretza, you have no idea to what a joy I came. With all the pain and everything, the wall was blown. It wasn't just a wall which separated between the old and the new city of Jerusalem. It was a wall who stood on our way to our Jerusalem for 2,000 years. It separated between us and the place of our kingdom, the kingdom of David. It separated between us and the mountain of God. And now it's blown. We are getting back. I felt I was caressing the skies from joy with all the pain. I live or not, wounded or not, that doesn't make any difference. Such a joy, I couldn't believe that a person could get into such a... And all I said myself, I'm sorry I can't go along with you anymore in my situation, in my condition. This great time of our nation. Go ahead to our Jerusalem and let God go along with you. I was bandaged. I was taken on a stretcher on the way to the ambulance, and all this way I feared that those who carry me, who try to save my life, can get hurt. The bombs are blowing around. And then suddenly felt another push in my head. That time, a bomb blew on my left side. As we say, Mimenenu Michael, Mismoenu Gabriel. From my right side, the angel of Michael, and to the left side, the angel of Gabriel, and on my head, another piece of bomb penetrated here where I point, and got deep into my head as well. I was taken to the hospital. Before I got to the operation room, Dr. Beller tells me interesting news. We won't make you sleep during the surgery. And this way I lied in the surgery bed, and it took a whole day from morning to the evening that they worked on my head. They covered my face with a sheet so I won't see what they're doing, but I felt and I've heard what they're doing on my head, how they said, Bring the pincetta, bring the hammer, bring the saw, bring as if there's a carpentry on my head.
Oh my God.
And until I came to a moment that I felt it was impossible. It was so difficult, I thought maybe this is the end of my life. And then I felt all my body shook suddenly. Maybe I was shaking between death and life. And I felt I am facing God. And He's waiting for my prayer. What you asking for? I thought, there are so many things I would like to ask from Him. I tried to think what to ask. I felt He's waiting. No, I won't let Him wait for me. He has also so many things to do. What the most important thing? It's true. I wanted to live. But then I visualized my good friends who were killed, which I admired them. I said, they got killed and I will ask for life? It's not fair. So what shall I ask for? I said, God, my life is in your hands. You decide. What I want badly, I want to tell you. I would like so much to hear that Jerusalem has been liberated.